Hello and welcome to the RED-Scue kitchen. Today I'm doing a video because we had some really exciting news. I had an email come in and RED-Scue has been nominated for a Enterprise Vision Award, so an EVA. And it's the largest celebration of women in business in the UK, which is just unbelievable. It's amazing. So RED-Scue, if you don't know, I'm Florence. I'm the founder of RED-Scue. RED-Scue is all about creating better fueling snacks, carb-first fueling for people who are dealing with low energy deficiencies, have lots of output, are dealing with not knowing what to snack on, are struggling with the whole narrative around keto and ultra high protein. And when I tore my Achilles from a condition called relative energy deficiency in sport, which is when you have very much a lot of output for very low input, I was really chronically underfueling, overtraining for a very long period of time, and I was dealing with chronic stress, I was dealing with chronic gut issues, and it led to relative energy deficiency in sport. And it's called in sport, but it's really when your output is way higher than your input. And that is what caused my Achilles tear. And when I was looking out there was just no snack that I could trust that wasn't filled with very ultra high protein, ultra processed, that was, telling me to just eat loads of fiber maxing and avoid carbs. And so we use all natural ingredients. We use something called fufu flour, which is a grain that you can find it's used in African endurance cultures for fueling, and that is what we use as our primary source. And it means that energy is kept very high, but fufu and cassava contain natural vitamins and minerals, so it means that the body's also getting in that gut-friendly fuel and it can absorb those nutrients. And so building RED-Scue has now led to the Enterprise Vision Award, which the finals are in May, and then the event, if you win, is in... where is it? Blackpool in October, which is incredible. So today, leading on from that, aside from the very good news, I'm going to do a few reflections because it's London Marathon weekend, and for a lot of people like me who used to base my entire identity around sport, I mean, every day was productive if I'd done some sort of sport, and if I hadn't done any sport, I'd be angry, frustrated, really not a very nice person to be around. Couldn't get anything done because I'd be sat there thinking, I should be going swimming, I should be going cycling. I used to get something called sunshine guilt, which is basically like today, when there's beautiful sunshine outside, you're just constantly thinking, well, I should be outside making the most of the sun. I should be out there for 3 to 4 hours cycling. What am I doing inside? And you just can't switch your brain off. And when I got injured, it was funny because I was fueling more and I was using a lot of the RED-Scue to snack, and I'd wake up in the morning and, a lot of the time before I'd wake up and I'd start working straight away, or I'd be out commuting. I used to work in an office. I used to have an office job in a 9 to 5, and it was just the worst environment for me because as someone who already struggles constantly being around people and in social kind of situations, I'm someone who works very well by myself. That was really hard to constantly be in an office environment. I found it very much like school, quite draining. And coupling that with commuting, London, busy, stressful city life, I was waking up, I was running out the door, and it was almost like everyone celebrated that. Well, if you're not running around constantly and constantly tired, then what are you doing wrong? And that mentality for me, it just added fuel to the fire. So I was constantly overworking, again, back to the overtraining, going to the gym. I had a free gym membership through work, and that was probably the worst thing that could have happened because it validated the fact that I could go whenever I wanted. And I've only really noticed kind of while building my own business, while building RED-Scue, while being able to kind of come back and be in an environment that's more coastal, I really struggled. I saw it as a complete failure. I saw slowing down as failure. I thought only the like big city and the commuting and the running around was really valid. And honestly, looking back at my old routine, it was wake up, not have time to eat, you'd be rushing into work. Everything was rush, 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 rush. And my body was just so unsettled, and my mind also. And when I first had relative energy deficiency in sport and tore my Achilles, I was recommended to consume 20% more, which was really hard because food is very subjective, and the amount that you eat before you have like a major injury or something, you're obviously underfueling if you've got injured. You think it's like an adequate amount, you think you're fueling enough, and then when someone's telling you to eat 20% more, that's really difficult because food is so subjective and so dependent on your lifestyle, but not just your lifestyle, but also your mind. So for me, I am the type of person that ruminates a lot, and so if I was eating more or told to eat more, I was doing that and trying to rest more, but it wasn't mental rest. Like mentally, I was destroyed. I was eating more and training less, but more tired. I was exhausted. And people don't realize that there's like that kind of metabolic adaptation where your body is trying to catch up from so many years or months or days of underfueling. And because you're consuming enough that your body's starting to feel safe, you feel so tired. You'd think that you'd have like tons of energy and be like jumping around. But I think before, my underfueling was almost it. The underfueling was what made me do the work. I got this like buzz and excitement off of underfueling because my body was constantly on this like heightened state. And so when I was finally fueling enough again, my body was calm. But like calm in the way of like I could barely get up off the sofa. And that's something that is just not talked about. People are like, oh yeah, you start eating more and you feel like you can go out, you can party, you can see all your friends, you can socialize. No, I think my life got more boring when I started fueling enough because I was just on the sofa. Like I genuinely couldn't move. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be like, I don't feel like I feel like I have less energy. But it was steady energy. And my brain was quiet. Because it was just, I think it was just getting used to being fueled enough. And so there's that kind of period where you do feel more exhausted, but then after maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, you then start to feel that benefit. You can go out and you can start to enjoy life and events a little bit more. I mean, another thing that isn't talked about a lot is I really struggled with eating out and with menus, and so I'd have to kind of like look up the menu before I'd go out, and I'd spend most of the time focused on the menu than the kind of social aspect. And when you start to fuel more and have those snacks and fuel available in your own house, it means that you kind of expect it when you go out. So it takes away some of those like mental calculations and thoughts. Because I knew eventually that a lot of the snacks and foods that I was having, I couldn't just not eat out again. So it was relearning that like through that safety and through that aspect of letting my body surrender and letting my mind surrender and just being like, okay, I can't keep living in this cycle where I feel super buzzed and can get loads of work done, but I try and go anywhere after work and I feel so exhausted and I feel like I can barely function. And I think a lot of the part of it is how psychological REDS is and underfueling is, because you're constantly thinking about what's next. And it's just like, you can't even focus on the future. You can just focus on the present day. Have I done my exercise? Have I, I didn't have my lunch, or, oh, I missed this snack. And like, you don't feel an element of guilt about it. You feel quite pleased. And the point where you've reached the point where you're happy that you're feeling underfueled is the moment when, you know, that's the real hard part, because that's when your brain has rewired to think that underfueling is making the output and making your life better. And it's almost hitting that point to know that it doesn't work like that. I mean, for me, I was underfueling for so long, but my times were improving, and, you know, I was able to cycle really far, and I was able to do my fastest hill climb, because in cycling there's so much talk of like body to weight ratio and all of that. And it lasted 6 months. And then my body one day just said, nah, enough is enough. And my Achilles went. And it's funny because I was reflecting recently about the fact that I didn't used to consider exercise and movement as things that people would typically associate with exercise and movement, i.e. commuting. Like if you're, you know, cycling to work, that's movement, that's exercise. Walking the dog, cleaning the house, walking up some stairs, going for a very leisurely swim, going in the sea. You know, certain things like that. I only saw exercise as like high intensity endurance. And by that, I mean, like, I didn't consider yoga or Pilates. I mean, that was like laughable to me. It had to be like 300-kilometer cycles and running marathons and doing high intensity exercise. And if I wasn't exhausted by the end of it, it hadn't been a good session. And reflecting on it now, no wonder I was injured. And I'm surprised I didn't get injured earlier or have... The thing is, the injury was very bad. It was very, very bad. But I almost think in my mind, it could have been so much worse, because I was so running on empty, and I'd get home and I'd feel so nauseous to the point where I then would be like, oh, I can't eat anything. Like, I genuinely can't eat anything. And I know this is an issue with people who do like 2 hours or 3 hour sessions. They feel so knackered. Like when you've done a marathon or something, you see the people who are like, oh, I just can't eat anything. And that's, you know, that can be a very normal reaction, because your body, the blood directs away from the gut into obviously your muscles and the parts of your body that are needing it during that, and your heart for that intense exercise and that endurance exercise. But that's the trap when the underfueling happens, because you're like, oh, I'm just not hungry. And then you don't eat anything. And then that gap just means that the body is staying in that like depleted state for much, much longer. And that's why it's recommended to eat 60 grams of carbohydrates for just an hour of endurance, or an hour session at all. And that's why our RED-Scue snacks have 60 grams of carbs for the energy bar, and then the minis have 35 grams, because for that like fuel before training, some people prefer the mini bar because it's very easy on the gut. And sometimes when people take gels and things like that, they cause a lot of gut issues and indigestion, and some people feel quite sick off of them. And so that was the reason behind building RED-Scue. So we've got our mini bars and then our energy bars, and the energy bars scientifically have 60 grams of carbs for that specific amount. But I used to feel so sick, and it was only when I started waking up and reaching for a RED-Scue bar and being like, I have to eat this now, and eating it and knowing that like it was gut friendly, and knowing that I was getting all the nutrients that I needed, it calmed my mind. And we've had a lot of people in our community say that the RED-Scue snacks are the only things that they can eat, and it doesn't make their brain like whiz around with thousands of thoughts, but it also tastes great. And a lot of the time, sometimes these like gut health things taste like seeds and nuts and powders, and for me that's really off-putting, because I don't want to feel like some kind of science experiment or robot when I'm eating snacks and foods that I really like. And in supermarkets and things like that, it's so easy to just look at the packet and think, oh, I'm gonna go for the like 0 fat, low calorie option, because that is what I did. I fell into that too. And because I'm not very good at preparation, I'm not good at preparing things. I don't particularly enjoy cooking if it's not with other people. I don't prioritize myself a lot of the time. I'll prioritize everyone else, or prioritize my work, or prioritize sport. I won't actually prioritize like what I actually need. I'm always thinking, what do I need to do, instead of thinking, well, what do I actually need? And in REDs and recovering from it, it had to be, okay, like what do I need? And I had to set those timers on my phone for the fuel, because otherwise I'd be so focused on my work and hyper focused that time would go by. And it was only when I really learned how I functioned that it broke the cycle. And that was why RED-Scue was built, because I knew that I functioned off consistency, and I functioned off safety, and I functioned off having things in my cupboard and my fridge that I knew I would eat. Otherwise I'd buy things in the shop and I'd get home and I'd be like, that's going to cause more mental harm to me than if I eat it. When it would do me very physically good to eat and to fuel, but sometimes the mental part is the hardest, where you're thinking, okay, I just can't do that right now. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And is it going to derail all the progress that I've done? And so building RED-Scue is about partnering the two and being like, yeah, you can have something physically really good for you and will give you everything that you need. And, you need to fuel and you need to eat, but it's also, okay, well, I'm not going to spend the rest of the day thinking about it. And that's the most important part, because you still need to get on with your life, and you still need to prioritize the things in your life that you need to do, i.e. work, school, friends, family, kids. That's the thing that people don't talk about, is that REDs isn't just, okay, I can just recover and I don't have anything else still in my life. Your life is still at 100%, but you're realizing that your energy is at minus 100%. And it's kind of learning how to recover as you balance the other parts of your life. And a lot of that is noting down what needs prioritizing. So, okay, food needs prioritizing now. Consistent sleep needs prioritizing now. Exercise isn't a priority currently. Spending time kind of journaling my thoughts and my feelings and what routines and habits aren't working. Printing off a timetable of like, okay, when am I setting my timers to eat? That's the important stuff. And spending more time off my phone, trying new hobbies, but not things where like you have to physically go out and meet people, because that for me was way more overwhelming. But maybe finding a book that I enjoyed. I'm not the type of person that's going to be like, okay, go and find some like crafting hobby, because as much as it works for some people, for others they're like, well, that means I have to invest more money in crafting. And to be honest, you're better off spending it on food and snacks that you can really deal with mentally and physically. So all in all, if it's London Marathon weekend and you are freaking out that you're not competing, I understand you. And just know that you can look at people's times and you can look at your phone, and that's fine. But also know that the priority in your life currently is fueling yourself. And just because in this moment in time you can't compete, you can't do what you love, you can't train, you can't do the things that you enjoy, doesn't mean that you will never get that back in your life. I have very much the same black and white thinking. It's not black and white. You can get back to what you enjoy again. Just the priority right now is the fueling and the taking care of yourself. And that should be always, but a lot of the time competing brings in that mental element, that competitive element, and it's very easy to compare and compete and be like, well, I should be doing the London Marathon, I should be running, I should be training. But if you're in a recovery, if you're in an injury cycle, the most and best thing that you can do is, be part of a very supportive community like RED-Scue. Eat regularly and prioritize what needs to be prioritized currently. And you know that in your own life. Yeah, sending lots of love and see you for the next video.